Hello everybody and welcome back to Danganronpa. This will be the final episode. Last time, Mukuro had a confrontation with Kyoko and Chihiro, and then fought a bunch of Monokumas. Computer room's innermost area, Monokuma room. How much time had passed? The surveillance cameras at the gates were capturing footage of countless Monokumas falling at the hands of a child who fought like a raging demon. The Monokumas bolstered their numbers, and now 100 of them were trying to sink their claws into Mukuro. Most of them were running on autopilot, reacting to her movements based on prior information they had received in advance. But despite standing before hundreds of mechanical adversaries, Mukuro's face showed no fear. She hadn't sustained a single injury, giving a presence that was nearly divine to behold. Though Sakura Ogami was powerful enough to injure her arm, Mukuro in her current state could potentially fight Sakura to a draw now, without relying on firearms. She took complete control of the battlefield, taking in her surroundings as if they were part of herself. She dodged attacks from the rear as though she had eyes on the back of her head, and stabbed through Monokuma's weak points with her metal bar. No matter where the attacks came from, Mukuro deflected them all as if her skin were covered in eyes. Describing her as ultimate no longer did her justice. Mukuro had transcended the boundaries of humanity and becoming a pure killing machine. But despite that, even though she understood the ludicrous power her sister possessed, Junko was not afraid. She felt not one iota of fear. After all Junko can feel is despair. She even started to admire her sister's attempt to fill her with despair, but that sentiment quickly filled Junko with an orgiastic ecstasy of despair. What the fuck? Junko knew. She knew that Mukuro was neither hope nor despair. She was just a phenomenon. A disappointing girl who no longer understood herself. Who only knew how to be violent because it was all she could believe in anymore. Mukuro had become an avatar of destruction beyond that of any military force. She couldn't even be considered a soldier anymore. She was a natural disaster, like a typhoon or a tornado. Or perhaps, like gravity, she was now the fundamental force of the universe that only existed to bring despair to Junko. The mastermind enjoyed watching her sister go all out. If Mukuro had destroyed everything and ruined her life, Junko would still be comforted by her despair. She could just go right ahead and overpower her. Junko considered this for a few seconds until a familiar, hopeless habit reared its head. Her habit of getting so bored that it made her sick. The girl who had been grinning as she watched the screen now bore a look of calm stoicism, and she reached for the microphone connected to Monokuma's speakers. Mukuro was no longer human anymore, but Junko knew how to bring her back. It was a simple feeling, really, and with that hopeless feeling for Mukuro in mind, the mastermind said just one word: Mukuro. In front of the main entrance. Mukuro. That voice, it was calling her name. Instead of using Monokuma's voice filter, Junko's natural voice was coming out of a Monokuma unit. That's all it took. With one word, Mukuro Ikusaba stopped being a force of nature and became a person again. Monokuma would not miss this opportunity. As if moving to the beat of Mukuro's shaking heart, a torrent of claws leapt to attack her. But Mukuro trusted her instincts. Twisting her entire body to fend off the attacks, leaving her with only a few scrapes here and there. But the despair wasn't over yet. The ultimate despair didn't waste any time making her next move. The fuck? Okay. Who's that? Mukuro, watch out. Huh? As soon as Mukuro heard that voice, her mind went completely blank. Mukuro, watch out! There was no mistaking it. That was Makoto's scream. The scream that saved her from the spears of Gungnir and changed her destiny. No, that's wrong. It took her a tenth of a second to realize that voice was just a sound clip that Junko had replayed, but it was more than enough time to drag Mukuro, who had regained her humanity, into despair. Right when she recovered from her moment of shock, Monokuma appeared behind her and roundhouse kicked Okay. She twisted her head trying to blow, but at that moment, a different Monokuma attacked her from the opposite side of his head up. And as soon as Mukuro bounced that attack, two Monokumas launched simultaneous dropkicks and knocked her to the ground. The fact that they weren't using this class was they were trying to come with her right away. Before she could stand up, dozens of Monokumas waiting for her on the floor, climbed on top of Mukuro and pinned their wings. One of the Monokumas waddled into Mukuro as she lay face down on the floor. Her laughed. Pretty girl getting pinned by all these knees. A pretty girl getting pinned by all these knees. I wonder if I should feel more excited about this. Don't make that face. If I wanted to kill you, I'd just punch you full of bullets right now. God, I hope the audience watching this on TV would like that ending very much. I'm gonna try to do the right way this time. What are you planning to do to me? Mukuro asked in her emotionless voice. Monokuma guffawed, and answered. Nothing, I'm just gonna stick to the original plan and make you play the killing school game at the school. I'll erase everyone's memories again, and I'll just make them redo the introduction and the entrance ceremony again. In typical Monokuma fashion, he leaned his face toward Mukuro. It'd be boring if you had to redo everything. Maybe this time I'll have you participate as Mukuro Ikusaba. I'll take away even more of your memories like I did to that irritating detective girl. You'll just be a poor little girl with no memory at all. As Monokuma talked and wiggled his body from side to side, the other Monokumas danced and twirled around. Amid this fantastical scene, Monokuma continued to describe his hopeless plan in a nonchalant manner. At first, you'll be the girl with amnesia, and everyone will feel so sorry for you. But as they unravel the mystery of this academy, they'll find out who you really are. It's exciting to think how they'll treat you when that happens. Knowing you'll probably kill someone purely on instinct. Maybe I should rethink my rules about self-defense. You can't. Her memories would be erased. There was nothing she could do about her classmates hating her. But losing even her childhood memories would mean her connection to Junko would be severed as well. Even if Mukuro had no interest in the world, that was unbearable even for her. I've heard of New Game Plus before, but this is the first time I'll get to see a New Game Minus. Should I tie you up for fun? Or maybe we should make this game even more masochistic. Forget hard mode, very hard mode, and inferno mode. I want to just skip ahead to the impossible mode. Maybe I'll erase your memories after I drag you on a motorcycle, pummel you with 1,000 baseballs, burn you at the stake, and crush you with an excavator. Mukuro knew what Monokuma was talking about. He was describing the tools they had prepared for the various executions they had planned for the students. After everyone reintroduces themselves, they'll walk around the school grounds and eventually find a flat-chested girl with amnesia, covered in bandages with Fenrir's tattoo on her right hand. I bet the certain fan base might get off on that. If this were a game, that would increase sales by 500%. Though Monokuma sounded like he was joking, everything he said was deadly serious. As evidence, Mukuro heard a rumbling sound off in the distance. Now then, your sweet ride is on its way. Let me pull that up. Based on the engine's noise, Mukuro surmised that it was a large motorcycle that was supposed to be used for one of the executions. I took this time to bring this all the way from the punishment room, so you better be grateful. The sound of the roaring engine grew louder and louder, like the approaching footsteps of death. Mukuro wondered how Monokuma would drive it with such tiny arms and legs, but then she remembered she was dealing with an ultimate despair. Junko would make the impossible possible just to bring about despair. A despair that went hand in hand with Mukuro's fate. Did I fail? I couldn't fill Junko with despair. I couldn't save Makoto and the others. Questions raced through Mukuro's mind, but she wasn't able to answer them. There's no way she could answer them so easily. After all, she was still alive. The sound of the motorcycle moved closer and closer, as if it was threatening to break Mukuro's spirit. Suddenly, Monokuma stopped moving. The other Monokumas continued doing their automatic movements. As this strange event unfolded, Mukuro noticed something. The motorcycle had suddenly gone quiet. After a few seconds, the engine exploded to life and began to approach even faster than before. Only a few seconds later, what appeared in front of the main entrance was an enormous motorcycle that plowed through groups of Monokumas like a predator hunting its prey. The rider of this motorcycle was none other than Mondo Owada. Mukuro and Monokuma were both visibly shocked by this turn of events. Instead of addressing them, Mondo accelerated the motorcycle and stole from Monokuma directly toward Mukuro. As before his front tire touched Mukuro, he popped in reverse. He popped a reverse wheelie and turned the entire motorcycle around him. The back wheel swept over Mukuro's back, knocking away all the Monokumas that were clinging him. Hey, can you stand? Mondo asked, and begrudgingly offered his hand to Mukuro. Confused, Mukuro took his hand and stood up. What are you doing, Mondo? What are you doing, Mondo? I was so close, one of the Monokumas protested. Not in his normal voice, but as a hacker, Bashiki Mondo. Oh yeah, you're Bashiki or whatever, right? That's right, why are you having a terrorist? Hey, I'm bragging about this or anything. I have no clue if you or this girl is lying. The veins in his temple began to bulge, and his cheeks flushed with anger as Mondo said, But still, I ain't the type to just stand around while some idiot gangs up on a girl. What are you saying? Get a hold of yourself. You must be experiencing Stockholm Syndrome. You've deluded yourself into thinking you're friends with the criminal who's taking you hostage. Monokuma tried to explain to Mondo, but he ignored him, taking his face hand and pulled her into the back of the motorcycle. Oh, shut the fuck up. I don't know nothing about Stockholm's homes or syndromes, but don't go acting like you can boss me around. As Mondo shouted, he revved the motorcycle as if he was using it to punctuate his words. The ceiling-mounted turrets began moving, but the two disappeared before the turrets could take aim at the motorcycle. As they zoomed through the hallway, countless Monokumas just after them, waving their claws wildly through the air. Why? Asked Mukuro. Shouted Mondo. His voice was even louder than the sound of the engine. Don't get the wrong idea. I don't trust you at all. He lowered his voice slightly as if he were whispering to himself. But still, I don't know why, but I felt like I could trust what he said. He? Inquired Mukuro. There was no time for questions. The unit leading the Monokuma chasing after the motorcycle had almost caught up to them. And then, like the enormous nod, some tears and creature they joined into a class in perfect unison. At that moment, the motorcycle zoomed by a certain girl. A girl whose fighting abilities surpassed as rapid than a normal human. The strongest girl on Earth. With a fighting spirit that defied comprehension, the infinite rifle artists picked off the floor. A sound even louder than the motorcycle's engine filled the room. When the girl looked up, she saw it, Sakura landing on the floor, sending the pack of Monkumas flying several meters away. Sakura? If she heard Mukuro mumble her name, Sakura didn't acknowledge it. Like a statue of the fearsome dark king, she claimed to breathe as she stood before the pack of Monkumas, ready for battle. Your pursuit's methods seem unbecoming for one who claims to be the ultimate hacker. An overpowering aura seeped from her skin, and her skin shimmered as an intense heat began to fill the hall. Like the power of Negro's sheer violence, this was the power of martial arts. Negro physically allowed her to time along with it, and time along with it. But Sakura was generating enough heat to boil the space itself as she stood before them on her hands. With heat stinging her back, Mikuro looked ahead. Ensuring Zero cautiously peeking from behind the doors leading to the dorms, while Aoi and Taka helped crouch inside the building. After passing by them, Mondo slowed down the motorcycle and reached the front of the cafeteria and turned into a complete stop. The other students looked warily at Mikuro, and among these students, Mikuro noticed two people who watched regarding her with suspicion. One was Kyoko, who seemed to be studying the situation. The other one was a skinny boy who was leaning against Kyoko's shoulder. Makoto? Mukuro's lips began to tremble as she sat on the back of the motorcycle. Ignoring the pain coursing through his body, Makoto smiled at Mukuro and repeated what he said to her earlier. I'm glad you're safe, Mukuro. Unfortunately, Mukuro was unable to realize her hope of filling her little sister with despair. Instead, she had successfully planted the seeds of hope into her fellow students. Makoto had barely regained consciousness while Mukuro was fighting the horde of Monokumas at the main entrance. When he woke up, he did something extremely simple. He talked about his memories. Most of the students were still skeptical after listening to Mukuro's recorded confession on Chihiro's laptop. Obviously, they're still not entirely convinced at first when Mukuro woke up. But after Sakura asked them a certain question, the ambiance completely changed. What is this? Then beyond the walls of this school, the world is completely destroyed. You're saying there's no one else alive. Makoto slowly sat up to answer Sakura's new question. Don't worry, I'm sure Kenichiro is still safe. I'm sure he'll still keep his promise to you, Sakura gasped. Kenichiro was the only man she could defeat, a man who had promised her a rematch, and made her one other promise as well. How do you know that name? How do you know about that promise? Because you told me. No. Makoto slowly corrected himself. You told all of us. Sakura was silent after hearing those words. But she then faced the other students and spoke in a loud, clear voice. I'm going to trust Makoto. Sakura? Sakura? Though Aoi was shocked, Sakura continued to speak with determination. What Makoto just said is something I kept locked away inside my memories. In fact, I was planning to keep that a secret until the day I died. But if I shared that secret, that means there was once a strong bond between Makoto and myself. And with my fellow students as well. Makoto continued to talk in a gentle tone. Though it couldn't have been good for his health, he continued to slowly talk about the memories that the other students had no longer had. What is this? Why do you know about the spying planet alright? Are you a specialist then, user who can predict the future? You already finished that story, Hifumi. You had me help you with thinking. What? Oh, wait a sec. How do you know I extorted money from that code? What? Oh. That was... What's his face? Yes, here. What? How'd you know something about organs in the Kuzuryu clan? Because you already tried to fucking do that to me, dumbass. His words were excruciating, but even so, Makoto kept smiling and talking about their lives together. As if it was his duty to do so now that he had regained his memories. As the other students listened to him, they slowly began to realize something. The vivid accounts he was providing couldn't be explained as just passing knowledge. Clearly, some kind of bond between them all had been erased. Only Byakuya remained cynical. Why? There's no way I would have grown closer to any of you. It's likely that you're all secretly working together. Though Byakuya was still hostile toward Makoto's recollection of their memories, for the time being he determined that Makoto wasn't actually a terrorist. Mukuro had brought enough time for Makoto to wake up and share his memories with the others. But if she hadn't intended to do that, there was still a small sliver of hope that she grasped tightly. And now, as she looked at the boy who had smiled at her, Mukuro didn't know what to say. She couldn't think of anything to say at all. The battle was over, and Mukuro was now back to being a disappointing girl. She turned away from everyone's faces and apologetically climbed off the back of the motorcycle. But Makoto saw her and slowly opened his mouth to say, "Thank you, Mukuro. You saved my life." Makoto gave her words of sincere gratitude between his weak breaths. Mukuro couldn't bring herself to look at him as she mumbled to herself, "Why?" To herself, "Why? Huh? If Kyoko told you, then you already know what I did, right?" After regaining his memories and learning the truth, Mukuro should have been nothing but a hated traitor to him. Why would he smile at someone like her? Mukuro kept her head down. Makoto smiled as if he was unsure how to respond and said, "Well, I guess you're right, but you also saved my life many times during these past 2 years, and..." Makoto took a deep, quiet breath and smiled at Mukuro again. "You're my friend. We all spent time with each other. It would be great if we could all look for a different path, not despair. And if there's any way I can help you, I will. Do you really think I can walk another path at this point? I don't know what you can do, or even what I can do, but I think it's more important to look for that path instead of actually finding it." Was this intentional or coincidence? Just before he regained his memories, Makoto had said something similar to Mukuro when she spoke to him in the nurse's office as Junko. Regardless of whether he lost his memories or regained them, those words revealed Makoto's true character. As Mukuro confirmed that to herself, Makoto blurted out something that was almost too trusting. "It's not just you. Even Junko can." But he was immediately interrupted. Monokuma's face appeared on every monitor in the academy. His laughter seemed to be coming out of every speaker.
"I could have kept pretending to be that ultimate hacker, but it's boring to impersonate someone who doesn't even exist. If this keeps up, I'll lose my identity and turn into Kanakuma."
Kyoko looked up at the surveillance camera and addressed Monokuma directly. "You seem to give up pretty easily."
"There isn't a bear anywhere that gives up as easily as I do. Regardless, I'm pretty sure Jujira had figured out the secret of my control program by now. So, just as I thought,
you included that program on purpose." Kyoko realized something when Mukuro told her about Junko. There were 2 reasons such a hateful person would intentionally leave an obvious clue inside the Monokuma units. Either Junko wanted the outside... what did I say? Either Junko wanted the students to learn the truth about the outside world and themselves on their own, and turn their hopes into despair, or she was looking forward to that clue resulting in her own plan being undone, which would allow her to feel despair toward herself. She was an angel of everlasting darkness, delighting in her own despair and using it to spread despair and destruction to those around her. Why would someone like that continue to play the role of Monokuma? Actually, I set that program for Chihiro to discover she happened to be one of the final 5 survivors.
I feel so sad and empty that my preparation was a waste. But I'm going to think about it positively. The word retreat doesn't exist in Monokuma's dictionary."
Nervousness began to grip the students as Monokuma continued talking in his relaxing, uplifting tone.
"Now then, it looks like everyone's here, including Toko, who's still tied up in her room. So let's start the heart-throbbing, exciting, special graduation exam."
I don't know who that is. Huh? The students broke out in a noisy confusion, but Monokuma ignored them and kept talking.
Don't think about it too hard. Relax. Change Alex to Rupert, for all I care. Rupert? I'll still be the most adorable bear here.
Byakuya, visibly annoyed with Monokuma's nonsensical rambling, shouted, I already know it's you, Junko. Stop this stupid game and show yourself.
Oh my, don't you know? If you want to lure the mastermind out of her heavenly hidey hole, you need to bring forth a worthy sacrifice. You're not worthy at all. Do you really think the mastermind would show herself for your pathetic hope and despair?
He roared maniacally, then began to explain the special graduation exam.
If you pass my exam, everyone will graduate, but if you fail, you'll be held back for a whole year. I'll reset your memories, give you a fresh, new lease on life, and you'll reintroduce yourselves at the start of the school year again. They say people's lives don't come with reset buttons, but I'm not a people. Whether it's soft resets or hard resets, I can do as I please.
Yasuhiro seemed confused, but the other students knew what Monokuma meant by reset. He was going to force them to relive their school lives once again. As Yasuhiro struggled to understand, Taka pointed at a nearby monitor and shouted, Stop this already! No matter what you do to us, we'll never commit murder. These past few days should have already made that clear to you.
What was that? Jumped Monokuma. Are you serious?
Of course. No one here would ever take another human being's life for any reason. No, multiple have, but okay. As Taka shouted, one of the students, a pale-faced girl standing apart from the others, looked away. It was Sayaka. When she trembled, a voice popped up from behind her. Who was that?
What do you think, Sayaka?
She couldn't even turn around from sheer terror, but Sayaka knew. She knew Monokuma was standing right behind her.
Do you really think none of you will become a killer?
Monokuma leaned toward Sayaka and asked her a question only she could hear.
By the way, Sayaka, why did you go to Makoto's room when nothing strange had happened yet? Did you two have an inappropriate relationship? What would your fans think if they found out you made a move on a boy by sneaking into his room? Or were you there for some other reason?
She could barely make a sound, much less a scream, as her trembling worsened. Monokuma had nothing to gain by cornering Sayaka and toying with her emotions like this. He simply wanted to see the young singer fall into despair over her true character. And for that reason, Monokuma did not relent.
Hey! What were you trying to do to your close friend you've known for the past 2 years?
Her determination from last night blended with the memories Makoto had recounted and ate away at Sayaka's mind like a disease. As her mind began to rip itself apart, she fell to her knees. A clear ball, flying at just under 105 miles per hour, struck Monokuma in the mouth with enough force to sink into his face. Hell yeah. The speaker in Monokuma's mouth was immediately destroyed as his body rolled into a wall and stopped moving. Sayaka came to his senses and looked where the ball came flying from. She saw Leon breathing heavily as he stared intensely at Monokuma. Yasuhiro grabbed him and yelled, Ah, dude, why did you do that, Leon? That crystal ball is really valuable. Leon had stolen Yasuhiro's crystal ball and thrown it at Monokuma. That Monokuma bastard was trying to take Sayaka hostage. What was I supposed to do? Dude, that crystal ball cost me $2 trillion. $2 trillion! They don't even print that much money anymore. Oh, bullshit. Besides, if the world's so screwed up, what the hell are you gonna need that money for anyway? But if it's safe out there, I'll just join the major leagues or whatever and pay you back. I could pay you back by doing something else besides baseball. As the two argued, Sayaka fell to her knees. Hey! Shouted Leon, running toward her. Sayaka, are you okay? She looked at me and stared blankly. Moving on. She had made up her mind, and she raised her hand as she said, there's something I need to confess to you later. Whoa! Seriously? Sayaka was staring at me so intensely that he briefly forgot about the current situation. Not just to you, but to Makoto, and the others too. Sayaka had made up her mind to confess to sin that it was weighing heavily in her heart, but Leon seemed not to hear the latter half of her remark. He ran back to the others, tapping Fumi and Yasuhiro on their backs and shouted, Alright everyone, it's this exam or whatever, get out of here already. No way I'm gonna let my happy memories of this place get taken away. The Monokubas inside the monitor responded. Fine. Now that things are finally coming to a boil, let's start the graduation. Sakura, who had been outside the dormitory, suddenly appeared with some information. The Monokubas in the hallway are acting peculiar. The students all moved to the main building to see what Sakura was talking about. There they saw 50 Monokumas standing in 2 rows along the walls of the hallway. No one standing at the very end of the hallway. There was something strange on top of this Monokuma's head. An enlarged version of the escape button that Makoto had obtained from the Mono machine. As each student took in the sight, an announcement rang throughout the school. The knee at the end of the hall has a button on the top of its head for alerting the main entrance. You have 15 seconds to get that button, and if you do, I'll let you have your complete set of diploma. The students seemed surprised by the straightforward explanation. Only Celeste remained calm as she asked Monokuma with a bored look on her face. Of course. It is not as simple as running up and taking it, is it? How mean. Do I look the kind of headmaster that would interfere with his student's graduation? Forget the gunfire salutes. I'm gonna send my graduates off with some fireworks. 100 fireworks to be exact, enough for 20 seconds of hardcore partying. The more perceptive students immediately realized what he was talking about. The bombs were installed inside each of the team. They would explode one after the other, filling the hallway with fire as soon as time started. After 15 seconds, the new standing at the back of the hall is going to sacrifice himself to give you guys one final firework. By the way, this probably isn't important, but that button isn't very durable. This graduation exam was Monokuma's way of saying that he had no intention of letting anyone leave. It was clear from the explosion that the students saw during the entrance exam that the halls of Hope Street Academy would be bathed in fire. Even if someone was lucky enough to survive the explosions, the burns on their body alone would be enough to send them into a fatal shock. Their lungs might be completely incinerated by the scorched air before that. Even if they sacrificed one student to run through, the odds were low that they would succeed. But there was no reason for every student to run in at once either, and a shadow of despair fell upon their faces. Nice. Very nice. I almost want to take a picture so I have those faces as a souvenir. As Monokuma laughed from behind the monitor, Sakura stepped forward. I'll do it. I have only seen the explosion once, but I believe I'm capable of withstanding its power. No, shouted Ali. You can't. Even you can handle 100 of those explosions. Sakura shook her head. I'm the only one who even has a chance. Suddenly, Mono remembered the motorcycle in the park inside the dormitory and said, Hold up. A motorcycle might be fast enough to go through those explosions. I'll do it. Don't be hasty, urged Sakura. Even if the motorcycle is unharmed by the explosions, that doesn't mean it's right. Sakura? If an explosion doesn't blow up the motorcycle, then it's not going to hurt the rider. As Sakura and others continued their debate, one person stepped toward the hallway lined with Monokumas. I'll do it. Mukuro! Screamed Makoto weakly. Makuro? Mukuro, with her back facing Makoto, turned her head to the side slightly and gave him a small nod. She knew it would come to this. She knew why Monokuma would pose such an impossible exam. Junko's already looking forward to the next despair game. She's going to erase everyone's memories, including mine. She just wants to torment us and fill us with despair before that happens. But Mukuro knew her sister's personality all too well, and that's why she was confident. She knew that the escape button was real. Whenever Junko brought despair to the others, she always made sure there was a possibility that despair would befall her instead. If the students won this gamble and made it through this horrible situation, they would finally escape to the outside world. That outcome would obviously fill Junko with immense despair. In the same way she left a clue in Monokuma's control program, Junko could not be satisfied unless she took pains to assure her own destruction. It was this quality that made Junko the ultimate despair. That's why Mukuro was determined to do it. She knew she was the only person who stood a chance of making that outcome possible, even if she had the risk of her life. But right now, Mukuro wanted to live more than anything. She wanted to hold on to this world, a world she had no interest in previously. She didn't even know if this hesitation she felt was disappointing or not, but she wanted to live and continue searching for a new path. A path where she could abandon her submission to despair, where she could accept the sins of the past and continue to live. Mukuro, who was known as a war machine, found her heart beset by overwhelming fear and anxiety. Until now, it had never occurred to her that determination was necessary to live. My god, it's just like Undertale. As if she was brushing aside that fear, she quietly said, thank you, Makoto. Unfortunately, the words she said to the boy, who showed her new possibilities, never reached his ears. Sakura, however, heard her and frowned as she said, if you're planning to sacrifice yourself as an act of penance, I'll stop you with all my power. Though her words were firm, there was unmistakable affection hidden in them. Both girls had dedicated their lives to battle, and yet Mukuro felt a twinge of jealousy towards Sakura for possessing something she lacked. Mukuro leaned towards Sakura and whispered in her ear, What? Are you serious? What? Are you serious? As Sakura's frown intensified, Monokuma's words blared through the halls. Alright, I'm gonna start this exam now. Ready, set, go! There was no time for questions or objections. The frontmost Monokuma exploded, sending a roaring wave of heat through the hall. But Mukuro didn't look away. She began moving, powered by resolute determination. As soon as the graduation exam started, her mastermind focused her control entirely on the Monokumas holding the escape button, and completely synchronized her field of vision with it. She knew what was going to happen next. She would predict what her sister Mukuro would do in this exact situation, where she would choose to focus her superhuman skill with weaponry. And so, through Monokuma's eyes, she watched the scene unfold exactly as she had predicted. A pointed metal bar burst through the explosions, headed straight for the weak point of the Monokuma holding the escape button. Specifically, it was aimed for the point where the bomb's detonation system and Monokuma's power source overlapped. It flew straight and true, as if it had been fired by a master archer. And in order to bring this to Monokuma, and by extension Junko as well, the super soldier known as Mukuro Kusaba gave the pipe like a spear so it could attack the same weakest point she had pierced in the nurse's office. An explosion filled the hallway until only fire remained visible. The spear's speed and precision as it soared to its target defied all human logic. But the mastermind knew. She knew Mukuro had used her power to fill the world with despair. Power was all that disappointing girl had. But that power was useless against Monokuma. The mastermind had predicted that Mikuro would put all their effort into that throw, and Monokuma caught the metal bar perfectly between his hands. The force of the throw knocked Monokuma back several yards, but the pointed end of the bar never pierced through his chest. Well, that was disappointing. The mastermind turned to look at a different monitor. I wanted to see the look on Mikuro's face when she realized that she failed to strike Monokuma. The despair of seeing the final Monokuma explode right before her eyes, completely obliterating the escape button. She wanted to seal this memory of her disappointing sister's final moments, and her newfound hope sank into a dark pit of despair. On instinct, she turned her attention to the surveillance camera that hadn't been destroyed, but instead of seeing Mikuro and the others, she only saw Sakura, who looked as though she had finished launching an attack. She only thought it was strange for 1 second, but then the hopelessly powerful mastermind completely understood the situation and shifted her point of view to Monokuma. But because of that single second, Junko would feel just a pang of despair. 3 seconds left. Amid the smoke, flames, and heat encircling the hallway, it burst through with the speed of a cannon shell. It clear that Monokuma was hot holding out with the betrayal of the ice expression on his face. And then, sharply, swiftly, strongly, it transformed into a living weapon that cuts through everything, revealing its true form in the hall of despair. 2 seconds left. Monokuma, who was still holding the metal bar in his hands, tried to move, but at that exact moment, the living weapon carved a path through the flames and appeared before him. Shit, I did not mean to press that. Its body, which had never been wounded on any battlefield, was sustaining all manner of burns and injuries. Yet even so, it did not falter, the fire in its eyes never flickered once. 1 second left. The living weapon, Mukuro, slammed her knee into the back of the metal bar Monokuma was holding. The sharp tip of that metal bar pierced through Monokuma like a railsnake, shredding the detonator and his palisades into pieces. Time's up. The 100 explosions ceased, and smoke blanketed the hallway. Mukuro had dived into Monokuma, and the pristine escape button now rested in her hand. She and the other students of Hope's Creek Academy had passed the graduation exam. There's only a small amount of despair. Monokuma has tasted it in only 3 seconds. First floor hallway. Junko. Mukuro looked down at Monokuma. He could no longer move or self-destruct. When she spoke to him, a static-filled voice emitted from his mouth. It seemed his communication function still worked. I never expected you to do that. He still sounded like Monokuma. It seems his voice modulator was unharmed as well. I must have overestimated you. I never thought you'd need anybody's help on the battlefield. When I give the signal, please launch me forward with a roundhouse kick. Oh, wait, no. When I give the signal, please launch me forward with a roundhouse kick. Mukuro whispered these words to Sakura just before the explosion started. After Mukuro threw the metal bar, she jumped into the air at the exact moment Sakura unleashed a roundhouse kick. Right when Sakura's foot made contact with her own, Mukuro used the force generated by her kick to propel herself at Monokuma. Using the ultimate martial artist's superhuman attack like a springboard, she shot herself through the air like an artillery shell. Enduring intense heat, shrapnel, and blood-draining G-force, she stayed conscious as she charged through the hallway, engulfed with explosions and despair. Mukuro trusted Junko. She trusted Junko to predict that she'd clear the metal bar and cast accordingly. Then she tried to look at her face and as the despair sets in. But Junko Onishima she knew would definitely do that. Although Mukuro hadn't predicted that her sister would try to kill her with the spears of Gungnir, she had a better understanding of her actions now. As Mukuro stared Monokuma in his face, all he could do was laugh scornfully. You put your life in someone else's hands for a deadly battle. I don't know how I feel about that. You'll always be a half-assed disappointment. I guess this time I'll just say I lost because I didn't see this much disappointment coming. The end. The end. Mukuro shook her head at Monokuma. No, you're wrong, Junko. Huh? If you want to talk about when you're losing, I think we lost before we even started. Mukuro's eyes shifted from side to side, as if she was unsure of something, and she fidgeted in place as she continued to talk. No matter how much despair they felt, you didn't think they'd kill each other the way they were before. That's why you erased their memories. They aren't like the others you forced in the past. You knew these students would never do it. That's what you believed, right, isn't it? What are you talking about? So, it's okay, Junko. Bring back everyone's memories someday, and I'll show you everyone's happiness and their bonds. I'll show all that to you and fill you with even more despair. Mukuro nodded after she said this, as if to cheer her sister up. After several seconds of silence, Monokuma responded. You finally beat me this one time, and that lame speech is the best you can do? You're such a disappointment. You never filled me with despair. It's just constant disappointment. After pouting like a sore loser, Monokuma continued to speak in his usual tone. But you guys will be back. And when that time comes, I'll invite you guys to a wonderful place. I found out this fun island while I was running things there. Here. Monokuma's laughter filled the room before the static finally cut out, and his remains fell silent. He wouldn't be talking again anytime soon. The mastermind was already preparing a new despair to bring the world and to the students of Rose Peak Academy. Junko included. In the end, the mastermind stayed in her Monokuma persona until the very end. Junko Enoshima never showed her face again. It's as if she resented the despair Mukuro had given her. The thought almost filled Mukuro with despair. But when she heard her classmates calling out to her, she revealed that despair into the depths of her heart. From now on, she would seal away all her despair. And one day, when she can give Junko the perfect despair, she'll unleash all the despair she stored and plunge with her sister into a dark abyss. I won't leave my little sister alone. In the end, that was the first hope and the disappointing older sister had felt since she was a child. Several hours later, main entrance. Why is Junko here? Mukuro, are you really going to go out wearing that wig? After receiving a blood transfusion of the correct blood type, Makoto was beginning to show signs of recovering. Mukuro, holding the wig to disguise herself as Junko Enoshima, nodded. If I live as Junko, I might be able to understand her better. Despite that, Mukuro's voice still sounded like her own, as if she hadn't fully decided. And I've made up my mind. When I'm out there, I've decided I'll accept everyone's hatred toward me, and toward Junko. I can't die until I've destroyed all the despair that Junko has spread. The damage that the ultimate despair inflicted upon the world could not be measured in terms of money, culture, or even human life. Television broadcasts had already begun informing people that Junko Enoshima and Mukuro Ikosawa were the heart of ultimate despair. Among the survivors of the outside world, there were still people who hadn't been tainted by despair yet. Regardless of the fact that she released Mukuro and the others, to these survivors she was nothing more than the reason the world ended. And to the terrorists wearing Monokuma masks who continued to ravage the world, Mukuro was nothing but a traitor. She was now in the hopeless situation of being enemies with most of humanity. But Mukuro wasn't making a big deal out of it. I'm going to try not to kill anyone who comes after me for revenge. Wouldn't it be safer to just turn yourself in? Wondered Yasuhiro. Well, you might just be executed later. Well, you might just get executed instead. But you could live as an old lady if your trial keeps getting pushed back. Mukuro slowly shook her head at Yasuhiro. Laws, justice, these things no longer exist. Is it really that bad out there? Maybe we should just stay in here. Byakuya glared at Yasuhiro with contempt. Ignorant idiots should just shut up. Your fate won't change whether you stay in here or not. Though he was shocked to learn that Togami Corporation had been destroyed, Byakuya continued to remain firm and proud, even toward Mukuro. You are a rare asset, continued Byakuya, so I will let you live for now. Depending on your actions, I may consider forgiving your crimes after I've built a new world. Only a Togami would boast that they're capable of forgiving the crime of ending the world. You don't need to do that. I don't plan on just surviving. After turning away from Byakuya, Mukuro looked at the other students. Everyone was reacting in their own way. Kyoko had a look of quiet preparation. Toko, having just changed back from Genocide Jack, was panicked and confused. Mukuro looked back on the 2 years she spent with them, then turned to Makoto, who shared the same memories as her, and gave him the escape button. Makoto, you press it. Huh? Me? I think it's better if you press it instead of me. She watched Makoto accept the button with some hesitation. Mukuro thought about what Monokuma had said. You guys will be back. Mukuro knew that Monokuma was telling the truth. After all, the file the students needed to fully restore their lost memories remained hidden in the academy. The research notes of Yasuke Matsuda, the ultimate neurologist. His research is the key to restoring everyone's memories, even if the students no longer have their memories. They may be able to repair the bonds they had built among themselves over the past 2 years. But as long as their memories remain unrestored, the mastermind could still repeat her deadly plan. Although the island mentioned earlier sounded strange, the students could not turn their backs on the despair facing them. Then, let's go. Makoto remembered everything that was happening in the outside world. The boy who had chosen to remain inside the academy 2 years ago was now choosing to leave. How much did he struggle to come to that decision? He was determined to face this despair awaiting him outside, and hid his internal conflict from the others. By protecting Makoto's hope, Mukuro would bring despair to her beloved sister. But she no longer knew if the end result of her goal would lead to hope or despair. She pulled the wig over her head and hid her face with her hands. Was she smiling because hope was waiting for her? Or was she crying because her path would lead to despair? When she lowered her hands, her face was devoid of all emotion. Mukuro no longer knew what expression she would wear on her face. At the same time, Makoto pressed the escape button. The siren began to wail as the turrets retracted into the ceiling. From beyond the heavy door, a bright light appeared. An infinite number of ifs, and all the possibilities contained therein, encased the world. Accepting everything, hope, despair, and even the feelings of that disappointing girl, Mukuro Ikusawa. Heroes at the front. Well, closest to the front. No, minus. Kyoko and Makoto. But Chihiro's at the front. Amazing. I love it. What a novel idea. And that's the end of Danganronpa If. Next time, next game I play is going to be, obviously, Ultra Despair Girls. That godforsaken game. See you all when we start it. Bye bye!